Hi, I'm Dax Gordine, creator of Forrest Folk, and you're listening to the True North Country Comics Podcast.
Welcome to the True North Country Comics Podcast, dedicated to promote Canadian comic book and graphic novel creators and supporters. I'm John Swinimer. On this episode, I chat with Dax Gordine about his ongoing series Forrest Folk, plus what he's planning for Toronto Comicon. This podcast is available on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and YouTube. Please like and subscribe to that video channel. Toronto Comicon is a spectacular 3-day sci-fi, horror, anime, gaming, and comic book event in Canada that attracts thousands of people to come to the Metro Toronto Convention Centre. Based in Ontario, Dax is a professional artist with jobs ranging from illustrating webcomics and graphic novels to classical film animation, including Osmosis Jones, 8 Crazy Nights, and Looney Tunes Back in Action, and computer animation for video games, including Namco High. He's also the creator of the ongoing weekly webcomic Forrest Folk, now collected in trade paperback, that follows the tales of Filbert the Fox and Thomas the Sketching Elf and has been described as Sunday funnies crashing headlong into Looney Tunes. So without further ado, here's my chat with Dax Gordine about his ongoing series Forrest Folk, plus what he's planning for Toronto Comicon. So Dax Gordine, thank you very much for taking time to chat with me.
No problem. Thanks for having me, John.
I appreciate your time. But before I get to all the questions, I'd like to know, what are you reading today? What's on your bedside reading table?
You know what? I believe last time you asked me this, or I don't know how many times I've been with you, but I never read anything. But actually, surprisingly, I did pick up a comic the other day when I was, because I'm working on some stuff and I want to change up some inking style and stuff like that. So I picked up a book by Boom Studios called Coda, Coda. And I just love the art style inside of it. So I picked it up and I've been using that and browsing that. So that's about as good as an answer you're going to get from me on reading comics, as I don't do it that often. So
Sure. No, that's a great answer. And the fact that you can find time to read comics is even more wonderful. So good on you, for sure. So we're talking today because you're going to be tabling at Toronto Comicon. And with that in mind, I want to ask you, what is it about conventions and festivals that you like the most?
Man, you know what? I had I only just recently discovered my love of cons. For many years, I think I went when I was probably 10, 15 years ago. I went with a friend just and did Artist Alley, and didn't like the experience. Obviously, I went with nobody knowing me, just going, and it was just kind of depressing and all that. But since tabling with Raid and my career kind of moving on since then, and having my own book out and stuff like that, I've been floored by repeat customers and fans that come back actually looking for the next volume of Forrest Folk, my IP. And so my favorite thing about that is just getting to talk to people that actually, ask questions or tell me their experiences with my personal story, as opposed to what I've worked on in the industry. And it's just it's talking to people and seeing the energy at those places is just awesome.
Yeah, and you guys, when you're at the Raid table there, it's a whole bunch of you, and you're always having a good time. Whenever you go by, it's always
absolutely,
a good bunch of folks.
Yeah,
that's true.
People, yeah, guys and gals, yeah.
Yeah. So, wondering, you talked about good experiences and bad experiences, but I'm wondering, do you have any past convention or festival experiences that stand out? Maybe meeting with someone that you admired, that sort of thing?
Well, yeah, actually meeting people, I would say, I finally got to meet what's the one? Charlotte, the con in Charlotte, North Carolina. I got to finally meet Scotty Young and talk to him and hang out. Well, actually, no, I've met him before, but actually because I worked with him a couple of years ago on a Marvel project, Giant Size Little Marvels. We basically became friends over Skype and stuff like that. So it was nice to actually meet him face to face and, have a hug and high five each other and stuff and be like, yo, what's going on? And then of course he was whisked away because he was doing tons of stuff, but it was still fun to hang out with him. Personal story wise, I'll do a real quick one. Probably last year, I think. Oh, which one was it? It's the Comic-Con. I forget the name of it. The one that's in the library. They're really cool.
Oh, TCAF.
Kind of TCAF, yeah.
Yeah.
So I was there, and I was driving in, and I get a phone call from Rob at Raid, and he's like, "Hey man, you've got a fan waiting here for you." I'm like, "Okay, cool, I'll be there in a minute."
Mm.
And I show up, and sure enough, it's this little boy,
Oh,
probably I don't know, like 5, something like that. And he had bought his parents had bought a book up volume 1 off of me the previous con before in Toronto, and then came 6 months later, and he was like dying for the second volume. And he stood there and he was like so excited, jumping up and down. I got to high five him and stuff, and I did a little sketch for him. And he was like, I have a picture of it, and he was like smiling while I'm like drawing. It was just a really cool experience.
yeah. That's what makes it all worthwhile.
Absolutely, yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, those are the stories that really make it awesome.
That is cool. So, why don't you talk a little bit about what you'll be showcasing at your table during the show?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I'll be there with the raid crew again, as always, kind of just peddling our wares. And for me, I have volumes 1 through 3 of Forrest Folk, my comic strip collection, and it's in the vein of Calvin and Hobbes, Garfield, Saturday morning funnies or Sunday morning funnies. And I also have done work in 2 of the raid anthologies, and I'll be working on an up and coming one too. So I'll be kind of pushing those, signing those if people pick them up, and yeah, that's pretty much it. Maybe doing some commissions.
Cool. That's good. How about any other projects on the go that you can talk about, or is everything still in the mix? So to
Yeah,
speak?
not really. No, I mean, since I've talked to you, I did get to work on a really cool project that finished in September, and they've been releasing it, so I can talk about it now finally, which was It's Jeff, which is an animated comic on Marvel's YouTube channel. It's called Marvel HQ. So it's basically like Marvel little shorts, 2-minute shorts of Jeff the Shark and the Avengers, and that was a lot of fun to do because I got to I was basically doing posing and penciling and that so that they could animate it, do limited animation on it. So it was a lot of fun. So they've been releasing those. That was pretty cool.
Nice. Yeah, that's something off the beaten path, though, isn't it for you?
Yes, yeah, it was. It was kind of like I've been basically doing design and comic work lately, but like last year at that gig that came up, it's basically a comic. But I was the more we got into it, I started doing more and more posing, and I guess my animation background kind of came in handy because we were able to do some pretty cool stuff, and I kind of understand the process of animation as that was like my first passion. So I was able to kind of give them. Like if Jeff is like waving and jumping and running around, I didn't just cut the arm out and put on a different layer. I would actually pose like 2 or 3 arms out, kind of thing. You know what I mean?
Cool.
Yeah.
Sounds like fun. That's for sure.
It was good. Yeah, it was good.
Yeah. So I want to ask you then, what's your go-to tool right now for creating art these days?
I work in Clip Studio Paint, which is basically I think it's the Japanese version of Photoshop, basically. And I just like it because it was a lot more simple for me. I never really got the hang of Photoshop when I started using it, but I use Clip Studio Paint, and I just recently, probably not about a year ago, I got a 27-inch Wacom or Cintiq, yes, Wacom Cintiq. So I finally got upgraded from my little 12-inch. So I use the Cintiq tablet and Clip Studio Paint and Photoshop.
Having the bigger size, does that help you with your workflow? Yeah, really?
Yeah, well, I mean, it doesn't. I mean, I could still do everything I did on the 12-inch, but I was doing a lot more zooming on the 12-inch screen, right? Like this one is much bigger, and I have a lot more space to kind of draw on. Although it is funny, you do find yourself only drawing on half the tablet because it's so big. Like you don't really need that much space. But yeah, it's good.
But it saves you time, I guess, without the zooming.
Not really. You're still kind of zooming in and out of things a little bit. It was just more like, I don't know. It's more just, I don't know, visually, I can have more things on my screen and stuff like that. You know what I mean? Like it's not as jumbled. You know what I mean? Like
Sure.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, as a professional in the comic book field, I've got to ask you then, if someone were to come up to your table at the con and ask for one piece of advice, and they're making their own comic book, for the first time, what would you tell this person?
Oof. Well, if they're making their comic for the first time, or like do they actually have it and they're showing it to me, or they're saying I'm going to start doing it?
Yeah, they're going to start doing it. I'm thinking of making a comic book. What would you say to that person?
Okay. Well, my first thing would be, well, like how far along is your drawing, right? I mean, like, are you ready to get into a comic? If they usually those people come up and show me a portfolio, or they'll show me something they've started working on, like on a piece of paper or something like that, and then I can give them advice from that critique wise. Or I would just say bare bones, do it because you love it. Don't do it because you're trying to, become famous for it or trying to get it published or whatever like that. Like, if you're just starting and you want to just do a comic, your own story, whatever you want to do do it because you love to do it and because you're going to get joy out of it. And then it'll make the process that much easier and you'll enjoy it a lot more. Ask questions when you can or when you need to. Actually, we're actually really lucky with the internet these days because there's a lot of like, it's not all great stuff out there, like, you know, tutorial wise, but there's a lot of stuff that can get you going on it. So it's not as hard as back in the day when like, you know, you just be asking your friends like, hey, or we'd be looking at comic books and trying to mimic the pages we saw there. You know what I mean? Like there's a lot more tutorial advice and stuff like that at people's fingertips these days. So, yeah, I would just say just get into it because you really want to draw that comic and not because you're trying to, you know, get it published or you know, make $1 million the quote unquote easy way or something like that. You know what I mean?
Because that doesn't happen overnight. That's for sure.
No, definitely not. I can tell you that personally. Yep.
There you go. Oh, well, with all the stuff you have on the go, then I'd like to know, where do you recommend people go to find out about your current and your future projects online, like a website, social media, that sort of thing?
Yeah. No, I have daxgordine.com is my personal page. And it's got links to all my socials on there. So you can basically go like my most current stuff that I'll usually be posting or like on things like Instagram or Facebook. So that's where and Twitter, obviously, or X or whatever. But yeah, that's kind of where I kind of post my updates on my art and all that kind of stuff. If I'm ever doing anything, it'll be posted on those on the social media. So just bookmark daxgordine.com and you can click on all that stuff there.
Cool. Well, Dax, those are all the questions I have for you, but I'm wondering, is there something I didn't ask that you'd like to get across in this interview?
No, just come and hang out with us at the con, and I can't wait to see everybody there. We always have a great time there, and just come say hi and hang out with us. Check out some really cool books. We have a lot of great artists there. And more people are joining Raid all the time, and there's some really good, talented people there. So it'll be fun for people to get to meet them.
Thanks to Dax for the chat. You can discover more about Dax on Instagram at D__GEE and online at daxgordine.com. And thanks to you for listening to the True North Country Comics podcast. If you haven't done so already, please subscribe to and like this podcast on Apple Podcasts. And remember to check out the TrueNorthCountryComics.com website. True North Country Comics is now on YouTube. Please like and subscribe to that video channel and hit the notification button. Remember, you can check out at True North Country Comics on most social media sites. And please send any and all feedback to John at TrueNorthCountryComics.com. Thanks again for listening, and come back soon for another episode. Bye for now. True North Country Comics Podcast is copyright True North Country Comics, copyright 2024.